In this movie, we'll explore the ability to make your own custom effects and transitions using two special effects in the Sapphire library. It's located under the Builder category. Both S-Effect and S-Transition allow users to access a separate interface where they can have more control than what's available from other effects in the library.
So in this movie, we're going to get a better sense for how S-Effect works from the Sapphire Builder category. And we can begin by going to our effects and presets and doing a search for S-Effect, and being able to take S-Effect and apply that to the clip in the Chapter 109 composition. Once we do, we can see all of the parameters for S-Effect in Effect Controls, and notice it's very limiting compared to some other Sapphire effects. In the last movie, we sort of browsed all the presets that are under S-Effect, but this time we're actually going to go in and edit the effect. You can see once I click that button, I enter into a separate window called Builder, where I can build basically an effect using multiple Sapphire effects. I want to just scroll down so we can get a better look at this interface and make this window full frame. So right here in the middle, you can see I have a source and I have a result. And this is kind of like a tree-based system. So what I can do is stack effects on top of each other, or what some people might call node-based compositing. So let's actually add something to our video clip. I'm going to head over to the left-hand section and do a search under where it says components. I can kind of search almost the entire Sapphire library here. I'm going to do a search for a grunge. And once I find the grunge-based effect, or S-grunge, I can drag and drop it here to that tree-based section, or I can simply double-click it and it will be added to the tree. Now you can see that it's obscuring the entire image, which I don't want. So with this effect still selected, we can see its parameters on the right-hand side. If I go down to frame amount and increase it a little bit, you can see that by increasing that amount, I can see more of my frame underneath. So for this grunge effect, you can actually have 3 stamps that compose it. Right now, 2 of those stamps are activated. If we look under stamp 1, we can see that a garage floor is selected. Let's change that up to frost. Now you can see frost has taken its place. And if we go down to the color section, we can play with its colors. I want to make this just a little bit more red. Awesome. Let's actually head down to the stamp 2 section. And instead of using the paint spray that's here by default, let's set that to none. Great. Now we can see the frost by itself. If we want to see more of it, we can head all the way to the top to the density section and increase that a bit so that we see more of that frosty display. So before sending this over to After Effects, we actually have a few choices. The first thing we can do is rename this effect. So instead of S-grunge, I'm going to call this grunge vignette. The next option we have is the ability to choose which parameters actually go over to After Effects. So if you're the head animator, rather than show your junior animator all of these parameters that you see listed here, you can just choose a few of them to show up inside the After Effects' effect controls. So I'm going to click on this checkmark to deselect everything. So let's choose a few useful parameters. I'm going to choose stamp opacity and size. I'm actually going to lower the opacity a bit before sending it over. I'm also going to check frame amount and softness. We played with frame amount earlier. Let's also bring it into the location of the frame as well as the frame radius. So everything that's checked is going to go over to After Effects. Everything that's unchecked is going to remain here. So before we send this over to After Effects, let's add another effect. I'm going to head back to my component section and do a search for a blur. You can see several different types of blur show up. I want to select this one here, and I'm going to drag it just underneath my existing grunge effect. And lo and behold, everything is appearing a little bit blurry. Let's get control over some of these parameters. Let's load a preset. And I'm just scrolling through some of the presets here that you see available. I'm going to choose this steamy Windows look. And once I do, it's applied to the entire image. And rather than have it applied to the entire image, let's just have it to the edges of the frame. So there is a way that we can control this. So we're going to add a matte to this effect. So under our component section, let's do a search for shape. And we're going to take that shape effect and just add it over here to the side, not attaching it to our little tree. I can see this shape as long as this little button down here is checked called See Selected Nodes. What we want to do is actually decrease the pointless size right now and increase its size. You can see I'm trying to go for this perfect circle look. So if you ever need to, you can sometimes drag values higher than you can drag the slider. So if you click here on the number and scroll, we can drag further than the slider to increase the size of the circle. Let's go down here to just basically increase the softness of the circle to add a little bit of a blur. So the intention for this shape is not to actually show up in After Effects, but is to be just used as a matte after we just decrease it in size a little bit here. So what we can do is click on the checkbox at the top to turn off all of the parameters so that nothing shows up in After Effects. So let's name this appropriately. I'm going to call this mask. And we're going to take this effect and take its little arrow here and attach it to the matte port of the blur. So we're essentially using that shape to define where we see the blur. So I've got the opposite of what I want, but what I'm going to do is select this blur 1, or this newly named item called mask, and I'm going to simply invert it. That blur shows up on the edges of the image. So keep in mind, I can always go back to the shape, play around with its size, and that's going to actually affect the size of the blur. Now, before going over to After Effects, we're going to go to the blur effect, and I'm going to deselect all of the parameters and just choose a few that I'm going to find useful. So I'm going to click on these right here. And finally, I'm just going to click on brightness. And once I have those few effects that I've selected, and keep in mind, this is just for the junior animator, when he gets a hold of this in After Effects, I'm going to press OK. And now I'm back inside of After Effects. If we look in Effect Controls, you can see S effect containing 2 effects. So this reads as one effect that I can click on and off. And if we take a close look, we can see the 2 effects we've decided to publish or bring over to After Effects, and only the parameters that we've clicked on. Really, really cool. So this can really simplify some motion graphic workflows, especially when you have a team of head animators mixed with junior animators. Keep in mind, I can take this preset and save it as a preset to the After Effects library. And I also have the ability to save it as a preset right inside of GenArts Sapphire. The advantages to that is if I'm sharing this with, let's say, another editor on another platform, I can actually ship him this effect and he can use it inside of his projects. So this is an overview of S effect. S transition works in a very similar way, except it's at a transitional level. So you can mix Sapphire's transitions with Sapphire's effects to create superpowered transitions for all of your workflow needs. So hopefully this video just skimmed the surface of what's possible. Find out some more information at genarts.com.